Welcome to The Explainer. On December 13th, 2025, a terrible tragedy struck one of America's oldest universities. Today we're going to break down exactly what happened at Brown University.
So let's start with a number, 11. That's the number at the very heart of this story. 11 total casualties. And right away, that number just hits you. It tells you the scale of the human cost on campus that day.
You know, Rhode Island's governor really captured the shock everyone was feeling with just 4 words. The unthinkable has happened. It just perfectly sums up how the community was grappling with this kind of violence, something they had always hoped, always prayed would never come to their doorstep.
All right, so let's start with the confirmed impact of the attack. What this crisis really looked like for the people on the ground.
Okay, so here's the breakdown. The attack left 2 students dead right there at the scene. Another 9 were sent to the hospital. And get this, 8 of those students were in critical condition with gunshot wounds. The other person had a non-life-threatening injury from a fragment. What's really staggering is that at least 10 of the 11 victims were students. Just devastating.
And of course, the university itself was just reeling. The president, Christina Paxson, tried to put words to the heartbreak, saying there were truly no words. She called it a day that the community had always hoped would never, ever come.
So how did this all happen? To really get a sense of the chaos of that afternoon, we need to piece together how this attack unfolded, pretty much moment by moment.
What's chilling is how specific the timing and location were. This wasn't random. It happened during final exams, a time of really high stress, sure, but also a time when you know exactly where large groups of students are going to be. The target wasn't just some random building, it was a specific review session for an economics course.
It all started so fast, right around 4 p.m. The gunman walks into this stadium-style classroom, shouts something. Witnesses couldn't even make it out in the confusion, and then just opens fire. Think about how quickly this moves. Within 5 minutes, the first calls are hitting 911. The university gets its first official alert out at 4:22 p.m., but by that point, the shooter was already gone. He'd fled the scene.
The stories from people who were there, they just paint this picture of absolute terror. The TA who was leading the review session said students were just scrambling, trying to get down the stadium seating to escape. In labs nearby, you had students hiding under their desks. People in the lobby heard these loud pops and just ran for their lives. Just pure chaos.
Okay, so the shooter is large. The priority shifts instantly. The entire campus goes into lockdown and a massive manhunt kicks off.
Now, in the middle of all this chaos, there was a major communication error. At 4:51 p.m., an alert goes out saying a suspect is in custody. Imagine the relief, but it was false. It created this 20-minute window of false security before they corrected it. It really just goes to show you how tough crisis management is. You're trying to get information out fast, but it has to be accurate.
And the scale of the response? Just look at this number, over 400. That's how many law enforcement officers swarmed the area. We're talking local police, state police, even federal agencies like the FBI and ATF. They all descended on campus to lock it down and start the search. So you have this huge, multi-agency manhunt sweeping across the campus and spilling into the surrounding neighborhoods. For hours, streets that are normally bustling were just eerily quiet. The whole community was told to stay inside. Meanwhile, police are going building by building, systematically evacuating students and getting them to a secure athletic center. So, as night falls and the manhunt is still in full swing, investigators are facing this massive task. They've got to figure out who did this, and maybe even more importantly, why. It's all about separating the hard facts from all the unanswered questions.
So who was the gunman? That's the #1 question on everyone's mind, right? As of that night, all the authorities could do was release a description. They hadn't identified him, and they had found absolutely no connection to the university.
And what they do have is pretty thin. The description comes from a few witnesses and a short security video, and it only shows the suspect from behind. So we know it's a male, maybe in his 30s, dressed all in black. But the detail that really stands out is a camouflage mask. That tells you he was determined to hide his identity. And with no note, no manifesto, no one claiming responsibility, the motive is just a total black hole.
Another huge question for investigators: how did the shooter even get in? And the answer points to a really big security failure. See, the classroom itself, that required a key card to get in, but the main doors to the building, they were unlocked.
That meant the attacker could just walk right in, get all the way to the classroom door, completely bypassing that first line of defense. It really makes you think about how vulnerable these open college campuses can be. You know, the immediate physical threat, that ends when they make an arrest. But the psychological trauma, the impact on thousands of students, faculty, and their families, that's just beginning. And it leaves us with what is maybe the hardest question of all. When the unthinkable actually happens, how does a community even begin to heal?